So hello and welcome to the Hooked on Health podcast. I am your host, Dr. Sean Lordan, and today I've got with me Darcy Krinsky.
Hello.
So welcome, Darcy. Excited to have you. And she's the founder of Higher Ground Fitness.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about your background, Darcy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on here. So I think my background was a little unconventional, which is the way of most entrepreneurs. But I grew up as an athlete. That's what I defined myself as in my 20s. I played college soccer, and then I was lucky enough to start my traditional career at Reebok. So I worked there for almost 20 years. And while I worked there, I was a big believer in really growing horizontally and working in or learning and absorbing from a lot of people who'd done things before me in a lot of different areas. So I worked in HR and benefits and compensation, and then in public relations and entertainment marketing. And then I moved to the West Coast and did sales for Reebok, moved to New York and did sales, and then came back to Boston. And one of the things I found when I moved back was just this need or this missing void in the suburbs for that boutique fitness that I had found when I lived in LA and when I lived in New York. And I was just sick of going to the Gold's gyms and the catch-all yoga studios. And I knew that there had to be more. So I had this idea that I had found this workout, Legree Fitness it was, that if there were people like me here in the suburbs, there had to be others. So on a whim, I had talked to a friend who owned a studio. She happened to be selling hers. Didn't tell my husband much about it, but I ended up taking the money out of my 401k and bought this, all of these machines, and I'm gonna open a studio. And then 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant, then pregnant with twins. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? I have all these machines. No one in this area knows what this workout is. And I just had to take a leap of faith. We opened in September of 2018, delivered my twins in November. And that was the start of it. And it really was a little bit of that, if you build it, they will come mindset. But at that time in 2018, when there was a massive need for boutique fitness, it worked.
Yeah, and I think there still is.
I do as well.
And kudos to you for your expansion and kind of filling that market void, right? So talk to me about, so you mentioned the horizontal growth. So share with our audience kind of what that meant to you and how that's helped, really help you grow Higher Ground.
Yeah. A lot of people that I have met so far that want to get into fitness or really, any area, they are so laser focused on the business that they want to get into, and in this case, fitness. And there's almost like two sides to the fitness story. Someone that personality, that unicorn that everybody wants to follow. And, at every gym you go to, oh, take their class. Oh, they're the best. The Peloton instructors. Instructors have almost come larger than life.
The Kelly Bray bands.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
But that's a really hard thing to bottle or also find if you're running the business. So a lot of times, those people that are your unicorns, they really lack like the business acumen, the business side of it to be able to run the operations, keep the lights on essentially. And so, myself, I had always been given the advice that, product is king. If you see any companies that have layoffs, unfortunately, it's usually marketing that goes, it's all of like the fluff around it, but you have like the product at the end of the day that is superior. So, when I was at Reebok, it was footwear and, apparel, but I really wanted to learn all of like the supporting players around that. I mean, you could do benefits anywhere, but when you're putting, the president at the time's children on dental insurance, you get to have a really great conversation with the president of the company. Yeah. So I started to really kind of curate a network of people. And then that led me to a job in entertainment where I was a math major in college, like entertainment marketing. I was working with like Scarlett Johansson and 50 Cent, like doing Reebok deals. But had I not at the time put that, president's child on the dental insurance, like I never really would have had those relationships to open those doors. So I think anybody starting, find the product, find the brand that you really like, and be willing to do a job that isn't in your kind of your direct career path to what you want your end goal to look like, and just soak up as much as you can.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. And I want to get back to truly like what your end vision is, or your vision is for Higher Ground. But Tell me a little bit about, sort of the workout, and, we talked about offline a little bit about how the machines are proprietary. That's really cool. That's not something you see everywhere.
Wow.
And I was kind of geeking out a little bit because I was on the Instagram and I was like, oh, those are definitely not Pilates machines. They look like them. So tell us the difference. Tell the audience the difference between, your workout and a Pilates workout.
So I was classically trained in Pilates as well, and it is an amazing workout. And at its purest form, it was for rehabilitation. For ballerinas, that's what, Joseph Pilates created it for. And it's very core-centric workout. But if you describe workouts, they're either high or low intensity, and then they're high or low impact. And Pilates, at its kind of foundational level, is going to be low impact, low intensity. And when I first found this workout, it was after, several knee surgeries, and my personality, I wanted the high intensity, but I needed the low impact. So this workout, it's, I would describe it more as like athletic Pilates probably. Mm-hmm. So it takes all of the foundation, all the fundamentals of Pilates and really just kicks it up a notch. So in our workout on this machine, it's made of steel. So you'll actually see, on Instagram, a lot of football teams are really now training on these, because I think the idea of a total body workout that really is focused on your core is just becoming so much more visibility to it. But that high intensity, it's to upbeat music, it's slow controlled transitions, but then almost that race to the next move, so you get your cardio high. And it's a challenge. So it's a boutique group workout, but it really is that kind of contagious energy that sets the room.
Yeah, that's cool. How many people in a room?
The studios vary. So we have 5 studios open right now. We have 3 more in construction, and some of the studios have 9 machines, and some of them have up to 16. Okay. So 1 instructor per class, teaching the whole thing.
And so it's like, is it an hour? It's 45 minutes?
45 minutes, total body. We usually start with a core warm-up of about 3 minutes. Then at some point during class, you'll do your obliques. You'll burn out one leg, your other leg. You'll do an arm block, and then you'll finish off with the neon lights set low, music gets up high, and it's like 3 minutes of just core kind of crushing. But humbling it was a really good word I'd use to describe it, because it's like nothing you've ever done, but it goes by so fast. You finish and you're like, whoa, what just happened to me? Can't really describe it. You're not sure if you want to come back tomorrow and do it, but you do, because you're like, I've got to conquer that. I've got to figure it out.
Can anyone tell that Darcy has a background in marketing? I mean, that's just a phenomenal way to describe it, right? And so I can tell that you've thought about the experience of the user. It's clear that it's been really well thought out. So tell me how you kind of, like, what went through your mind to kind of think about the dim lights and the music? Like, what are all the things that make a strong impact for that workout? Yeah,
I mean, I think with any workout, right, you have spin, and you have your soul cycles, you have your revved, you have a zillion things. And I think at the end of the day, it's really figuring out almost like who your muse is that you want to target. And it's not a lot of times, I think one of the mistakes that brands make often is how they, or how the owner, or how the marketing team is like, this is who we are. But I think you really have to go out and do a lot of work with your consumers, and it's the reverse. It's like, what do they see you as? And you can shift and adjust that narrative, but it's really figuring out, like our tagline we had was escape to higher ground. Well, what does that mean? What are they escaping from? And what we personally found out was that we're really targeting not someone that we're saying she's 25 to 32, but it's really, we're targeting that same female in different aspects of her life. So she has that grit. She's grittier than pretty. She's a workaholic, but as she becomes a mother, those priorities have to change. So we're targeting the same girl, just recognizing that her escape to higher ground is different at different points. Maybe in her 20s, she's taking the boss she wants to impress out for, instead of like her happy hour now, it's like this workout class. In her 30s, she's like, she's going to class because she's just broken up with her 5th person, and she's like, oh my God, I just need my escape. And then when she's, in her 40s, she's moved to the suburbs, and she's like, you better be home by 6 because I'm going to that class. And it is that same girl. And so when you think about what she wants still that uniqueness. Like we don't say our competitors are the Orange Theories. It's like the Botox salon down the street. She's got like 1 hour in her day. Is she getting Botox? Is she getting her nails done? Like, what's her 1 hour of self-care? And so for us, it's like, it's that moment where she's, you know, she's looking at herself fiercely in the mirror. She wants the right workout outfit. Like, so she definitely is spending money on like wanting to look well. Not, it's mainly women in the room. So it's not to impress other guys. It's to like stare herself down and then also have that like, okay, I've got this moment. I'm still there. And so that light setting, it just makes her feel kind of that like rebellious spirit that she may feel like she's lost elsewhere in life.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. Tell me, so I love how the avatar kind of lives in different stages of life, right? That's really, because your fitness goals change as you evolve and as, you know, I mean, your metabolism evolves and all of that, right? So what is, you know, so I guess what should, I keep saying patients because that's sort of like, who's your perfect patient? Who's your perfect
avatar? They think we're doctors. They walk in and tell us everything. So patience is a good word also.
No, I love it, you know, and it's perfect. But I guess your avatars or your gym, you know, the folks that are working out, what should they expect to sort of, how often should they come to see you? What results are they getting? Are they going to become more flexible? Are they going to have better endurance, like cardiovascular health? Like what are the outcomes of the workouts?
So I think in general, we usually like higher ground is really the only workout except for walking that I personally do myself anymore. But I think that anything, whether you're a CrossFitter or a marathon runner, anything too much is too much. Yeah. So if someone were to walk in, I would say 2 to 3 times a week is what you'd want to really do. And never getting to the point where you're going so much because it's like that challenge of I have to go, right? I would rather have someone say, I go to high ground 2 days a week. I go, you know, I do my physical therapy 2 days a week, and then I supplement with walks or like lifestyle things, because especially as, you know, that avatar gets older in life, our body needs that recovery. I mean, I think one of the things we had talked offline a little about was like technology side of things, right? I think that like people are getting so much smarter with being able, whether it's an Oura Ring or a Apple Watch, to literally know like how their body is feeling. And exactly, right? I have my Oura Ring. It's not on right now, but it's usually every day it's on. And, you know, you wake up and you can be like, this is how great I slept last night. And we really should be using that data to kind of throughout the day manipulate what we're doing and really be able to make fitness a part, like a fun part of our lives. And when I see clients that are too rigid with this is what I have to eat, this is what I have to, like the wheels fall off. Yeah. So it's really about sustainability through scalability of like how much you're doing something and are you enjoying it anymore? Pivot.
Yeah. So. And that's where you see success, right? Because if you get burnt out, you know, and I think there's something to be said about habit, right? So like I wake up, I go to higher ground. I wake up and I go, absolutely. Like right now I wake up and I have a routine. You know, I go work out at 7:30 at Unrivaled up the street, and it's great. And I see the same people. Yeah. But then I personally try to work in like 1 or 2 yoga classes a week because it's different. Mm-hmm. It's a different speed. And now, do you find with the Oura Ring? So I think let's talk about technology, right? Yeah. So I've got the Whoop, and admittedly, like I'll see it and I'll be like, okay, so this morning I was like 67% recovery, and I'm like, well, what could I have done differently yesterday, you know, to have changed whatever that outcome was that I found this morning? Like I think about that. I don't know if I necessarily change what I'm doing today to get a better outcome tomorrow. Right. Do you find that you're taking action on like what the past data is? So I think I've changed what I'm looking at. And it's funny because my husband wears the Whoop, and he's someone that like, you know, we know each other from the summers. He's someone on like the first day of fall, he's like, that's it. I'm done. I'm changing everything. He throws every single thing in the pantry out that like he deems isn't good. Yeah. But then like he has his like diabetic Welch's candies that he's like eating in the fridge because he's like, these are great. They're diabetic. Like he's not to any, like, I love my husband. He's amazing. Yeah. But he's someone that's like all in or all out. And he's like going to stop drinking and he's going to stop. And so for him, he sees it and he sees like the numbers, and it gets a little too much in his head, right? So I don't think there's a certain population that they read it, they see it, but yeah, they're not going to make the changes. It's just kind of like black and white. This is what it is. Yeah. I think for me, there's a lot of data on the Oura Ring that I get, but I'm someone who's never been a great sleeper. Yeah. And the Oura Ring is really for sleeping. It gives you like HRV levels and things like that. So personally, I do most things in life. I focus like habits I don't think are formed by trying to go all in, right? It's like little things that you change. So I've really started to dial into sleep on there.
And I have absolutely noticed that even down to like if I'm gonna have a drink, like red wine makes my sleep awful. I love red wine. It's a challenge that I've had to like learn that data to see how I shifted, but little changes like that. So like looking at my sleep, I've been able to figure out like, okay, what's going to affect that? And when I get that 80% reading sleep score, I see like my daytime scores go up, and I actually do feel a difference. So I'm not someone who's like, this is my heart rate, this is my percentage of oxygen, but like one data point on there, if I can make little changes to that, I do think it helps, but in balance.
Yeah, and I agree. I think sleep has been a huge eye opener. Like one of the things for me on sleep is like you go to sleep at, so I'm like, I'm not old, but like I go to sleep at 9:30.
I'm envious of you.
And so, we wrap up with like Noelle and Jolie at like 8 o'clock. They go to sleep at 8 o'clock. And then Brooke and I are usually in bed by like 8:30 or 9, just like reading, kind of winding down.
Yep.
And it's not uncommon for us to be like eyes shut at 9:30. So I'll wake up at 6 or 6:30. And that's, I don't know, if you do the math, that's like 9 or 9.5 hours. But then the Whoop will tell me that I've slept for 7. It's incredible, like how much you're awake at night, and you don't even realize it. So like I used to think I go to sleep at 10 and I wake up at 6. I got 8 hours of sleep. That's not true.
Right.
You know, and sleep is such a, like when you look at studies, like there's such a link between sleep and dementia and just overall health and
so much
lethargy and all that stuff. So
yeah.
it's, you know.
I know, and we're living in such a world where like work harder, and I mean after the pandemic, a lot of good changes from that, but more of the, you can be reached at 8 a.m. in the morning, someone sending you an email, and it's like, respond. So, it's the balance of like shutting it down, shutting technology off, allowing yourself to sleep. It's almost sometimes counterintuitive to what people think of like work ethic and working hard, but it really is all about like the balance and the boundaries that you're setting in the faster than ever moving world. So
yeah, I'm in an active detox of the phone for the first 30 minutes of the day. I'm trying to turn it off at night, or at least put it on airplane mode and not look at it for 30 minutes. Yeah. It's so hard.
It is. Like you feel guilty, like you're like, I'm not there for people. Like what if I got this text?
Or I need to look at the emails and make sure I didn't miss anything, or it's wild, and so let's talk about that a little bit. So we're both parents, we're both, entrepreneurs. Talk to me about how you balance that with Chase and Zach.
Yeah.
And Todd with his job and being so busy, know?
I mean, it's like absolutely a juggling act. And I don't think there is one day that goes by that like multiple balls don't fall at multiple times. And I think that is, I talk more a lot of times from like a motherhood perspective, but like from a fatherhood perspective, it's equally, the same and different challenges. But I think that is the most challenging part of being an entrepreneur. I think when I worked corporate world, you had a little bit more of like 9 to 5. Okay. And then it's not my not my issue after that, but like it felt like I was able to have more of the boundaries then. Yeah. With entrepreneur life, at the end of the day, everything, I mean, things you don't even think are going to affect small businesses. I mean, when everything happened with, Kanye and the anti-Semitic things, like that affects fitness because do you play his music? And so like stuff again that happens in the world, like post-election stuff, like it all affects small businesses. And, you either have a stance or you don't, or you're like the floppy fish in the middle, and there is no right answer because you're supporting a community. And then all of a sudden you come home at night to your kids who at the purest form, they're just happy to see you. Yeah. And that should be the person that you're like, oh my gosh, they don't even want anything from me but love after everybody else throughout the course of the day. But then they're the hardest people to give it all to, right? Because you're like, hold on 1 second. I said 1 second, 1 second. And, we got these little cards the other day we played with the kids, and they were conversation starters. We did it on Easter. And one of the questions was to the kids, what would you do if you were a parent? Like, what would you do with your kids and what wouldn't you? And they were like, well, I wouldn't play stuff with them like if they wanted to play to burn your house down. But if they said, like, can you play Legos with me? I just don't get why I'd ever say no. And my husband and I looked at each other and we were like, and I was like, why do we say no a lot? And they're like, well, you don't really say yes. And we were both just like, that is tough. But if I really think of it, I always have a phone, like, and I'm always multitasking. So I have really, really tried to like add movement into hanging out with them. And at the end of the day, like, I've learned the hard way, not like big things. Let's not try to take the tricycle wheels off at 5 o'clock at night when it's going to be meltdowns.
Yeah.
But like, leave the tricycle wheels out. There's, the training wheels, whatever they are, on, and let's just go outside and ride for like 10 minutes. It puts everybody in a better mood. I feel like, okay, I checked the box off on at least one mom win of the day. And then, go to bed breathing a little lighter.
No, I think that's amazing. And you touch on a point that the phones really do just like pull you in, and it's tough to balance, and so let's talk about that. I love checking the box of just being present for for the boys when you're at home. Talk to me about what do you do for your personal wellness on a daily basis?
I've always been a start the day, like breakfast protein. It took me a long time to make the switch to recognizing that like drinking breakfast, because I drink now like shakes every morning for breakfast. That's a hard switch if you're always have been someone who like needs a crunch or needs a bite of something. But like any habit that forms, if you almost like force yourself to go through the few days of it, you start to enjoy it. And then, when I'm out of my shake, I really miss it now. But I think that that's like a big change that I would recommend to a lot of people, trying to make.
It's just drinking a shake.
It's to take a shake in the morning, right? Because it honestly fills you up in the days where like I'm racing and
what goes in the shake?
So I actually still do the Beachbody shakes.
Okay.
I do like those. I just do Beachbody with like some type of low like fat dairy milk or almond milk, or I'm not really picky on that. And then a banana and almond milk. Almond butter usually. That's my kind of go-to. And then I think another big thing that it's not new news, but shopping the perimeter of the grocery store would be like the number one thing. Like I grew up and we went down the first fruit and vegetable aisle, and then we would turn down every single aisle, and Mom and I would like snake the grocery store. And then by the time we would get to like the other side with healthy stuff, she'd be like, we don't have any more room. And maybe we'd get like Wonder Bread. That would be like the last thing thrown in the cart. And we grew up going down that way. But I think if you force yourself to go the total outside first, your cart is already like halfway full with fresh things. Yeah. And it just, skipping that middle side of having that processed, because, as parents, like you're pouring cereal, you're like, and how many times a day do you literally throw in that quick handful when you're making the kids the snacks? And those little things, they do add up. But I think in general, I am not someone who is rigid. I think that being too strict with anything is literally the recipe for failure. So allow yourself that treat, allow yourself those, like little wins for yourself that are going to get you through, because otherwise, after a few days of being too strict with anything, you just will throw the towel in.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like that habit forming. Yeah. I think, and it starts with discomfort, right? If you think about it, working out, or I always say PT is a grudge use of time. Yeah. You have to make it an experience that people want to come to and actually enjoy it, even though they're, right? It's a painful experience, as you know.
I know. Yes,
exactly. So let's talk about that. I know that's not in our questions, but talk to me if you're, comfortable talking about it. Talk to me about your experience with your total knee replacement.
Yeah.
Was it two or is it just one?
One total knee replacement.
That's
what I think being in the fitness industry, and I'm sure you get this as well, like people think you are the guru personally of health as well. Like sure. You are the fountain of youth. And yes, I'm sure both practice physical things, but we both have genes, right? Yeah. And, for whatever reason, like mine are high blood pressure, I have glaucoma, I've been under anesthesia, I think 24 times so far in my life. Oh my God. And I still consider myself a healthy person, but the total knee replacement, I'd had 4 or 5 surgeries before that. And then I had to have the total knee replacement. And my mindset, I think, going into it was, well, my dad's had it. It's not an uncommon surgery. It's very routine. But my mindset was, I'm going to have this. I'm going to bounce back, and I'm going to, it's going to take me nothing, because I'm so much younger than my dad. I'm so much healthier, fitter than my father, who I saw go through it. And it was actually the exact opposite. Extremely humbling, honestly, like dark time. And now that I've got through it, there are so many learnings from it, and it helped me like widen my the empathy, I think, for other people. clients, whether, they're high ground or your team coming in, everybody walks through the door with like invisible baggage. And our job is to like learn those pain points of like what is causing someone, whether it's the physical, like the mental, just what is that weight. And for me, during the knee replacement time, I really saw what others feel when like I can't move. Like for me, it was always like, you want to go to a class, like sign up and go to the class, right? But the moment when you can't anymore, and no matter how many people are like, oh, give it time, in the moment you're like, okay, screw off that time. Thank you, but I've been sitting here, and it's hard, right? And I think it was a big lesson in like giving yourself that space, that time, figuring out when someone is down with the mental side of it, really how to do that. And I think that's what, ultimately makes businesses successful, individual physical therapists, individual instructors, of really not being able to just kind of spew out the way that they think things should go, but really being able to have that those 3D glasses that are going to like allow you to really recognize when someone walks through the door of like, what is it for them? Because for some people it's time, for some people it's confidence, for some people it's like, I literally had someone who I was like, you know what, before you come, because she was so afraid to come to class, I was like, literally go buy yourself a new workout outfit.
Yeah.
And she was like, what? I'm like, it was all confidence with her. And she's like looking around the room. She's like, I don't look like them. She didn't have to look like them, but no matter what I told her, she was like, I need that, like something to walk through. And she came in, she did. She got an outfit and she was like, you like it? I went here. Don't tell, I never have gone to the store. Yeah. But for everybody, it's just something different that they need to like get over the threshold and feel like they're part of that community. And like, once you feel like you're part of a community, not like outside looking in, it is totally different. You just, it's kind of this like badge of honor that you're like, I belong here. And you're going to earn it, you're going to work it, and you're going to allow others around you and motivate you to be there.
Yeah, and kudos for you, to you for creating that sort of community, and I think it's so hard, because it really starts with an ethos of just empathy.
Yeah.
Right? And understanding that everybody, whether it's a PT patient who's in pain, and not understanding that they may have had something personally happen in their lives that you have no clue. Yeah. I always say to our new grads or our PTs coming in, like, just ask a lot of questions, be empathetic, and like, you have no idea what's going on in people's lives.
None.
So half the time we're just a sounding board, and I understand it. Like classes, like you may not have the opportunity because people sign up and you get a quick chat before or afterwards. But I'm sure during your initial intake process, where you're like, do you do like an interview with your patient?
Yeah, well, we talk to them, and it's a lot of like seeing people moving during class too. But yeah, you learn a lot about people in that quick few minutes when they're walking in and out also. Yeah,
and then just kind of talking to their points, like, what are you looking to get out of the workout? What are you looking for in life? Are you looking to lose weight? Are you just looking to not, to live an active lifestyle and not, be able to like, for us, sometimes it's just people just want to be able to like pick up their grandkids off the, off the ground, and they're just, weak, and I think that I love the empathy piece is so important, and, it's tough to go through. I'm sure, I can't even imagine going through like a total knee, and then you had some setbacks too.
Yeah, I did. And I think that it was so many, so many different physical therapists, even before I, had spoken to you that summer on it, but dry needling ended up being like kind of my savior. I think with total knees, it's either the flexibility, or the extension side. And for me, I couldn't get that straight leg extension. Yeah. And I convinced myself at one point that I was going to have to go back in for another surgery. And you almost tell yourself like the easy fix, like it wasn't me, like I don't have to put in this work. It was them. It was the doctor who did this. And that's really hard in the medical industry, right? In the fitness industry, it's really, really hard sometimes to just be like, okay, stop, pause. Like, what's the practical approach to this versus like, this is what's going to fix it. It was them. It was, and it was time. It was, taking a different approach to maybe what my written plan had been initially from the doctor. So it was really, where I'm, live in Easton, I went to a physical therapist there that recommended the dry needling. And at first it didn't seem like it would, but then sticking with it. And like you said, it was that, oh, I don't want to go today, but finding that grit, continuing to go and work towards the bigger picture. I'm so glad when I'm like running and, chasing after my kids. It's like, it's still not my 20-year-old knee playing soccer, but I'm back to running after my kids. And for a long time, I didn't think I was going to get there.
Yeah, which is huge. I mean, that's function. Yeah. That's the end goal of any PT, is to make sure that, whoever your patient is able to do, we always say pain and then function. Get rid of the pain and then get people back to function. It's huge. So then you can get back to higher ground fitness.
Back to it.
That's the goal. Let's talk about, that positive mindset, right? So how do you keep a positive mindset toward health and fitness?
Yeah, it's hard, right? I think that like anything, it has its seasons, and being able to have that community side of it, have your bench, and really recognizing what like modifying means. I think that sometimes the word modifying, the easiest kind of simile to that is like scale back, make it easier. But I think that like modifying and having that tied to a positive side of things, of like, well, you modify in life for everything. You modify for sickness, you modify for injury, you modify for breakups, for hangovers, for everything. But it's like that continuing momentum versus like motivation is, I think, a big thing, because motivation is a lot of times like looked at as like grit, like, are you motivated to do this? But like, what's your motivational team? Like, what are your support players? Because like anything in life, if you try to go at it alone, you're gonna fail. So for me, it's like, it's that healthy side of teaching my kids that like movement matters in life at a young age. So if they're asking me to do something, it's less, mom, can we go get ice cream? And more, mom, can we go outside and play? So that like, if those are the things that they want to do with me, that's gonna motivate me to get up and go out. And I mean, cheesy to probably say, but I've never heard of a parent after like playing outside with their kids being like, oh, I hated that, I'm so bad I did it. Or like after workout class being like, that was awful. I mean, I'm sure there's awful workout classes, but in general, like moving your body. So if you can surround yourself by people that are like-minded with movement, work hard, play hard mindset, I think for me, that's like my motivational community. And it just helps keep me, positive that if I didn't do it today, there's definitely tomorrow to do it.
Yeah. And then just working it in as a habit, so you don't need as much motivation.
Absolutely.
I think if it's built into your routine, the motivation is just to work harder in that time.
Absolutely.
And to your point, like, I love the informality of it, right? Like, those 6 people on those machines, like they're going to have 6 different workouts based on what their, how they woke up and how they showed up that day.
Definitely.
And that's okay. Not everybody has to go to be at a 10 every single workout. It's just, I always say like showing up is half the battle. Like sometimes, and I'm sure you go to the gym and I go to the gym, I'm like, I'm here today. I'm going to do a 50 or 60%. As much as I want to do 100%, I'll do 50, but like, at least I'm here.
That's what I did. Yeah.
Let's talk about technology. Yeah. So there are a lot of cool things that I love about Higher Ground, and obviously the equipment is pretty cool because it's proprietary, which you just don't see. So that's really, like, I was kind of geeking out about that. That's really unique. Let's talk about how technology, and I feel like consumers, like there's so much out there. There's so much misinformation. There's so much like just crap out there. So talk to me about how you see technology kind of changing your business and changing the field of fitness. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's an add-on. I think that if you forced my hand and said, like, pick one thing within the world of like fitness that is never going to go away. And honestly, not just because this is my line of business, but I think that the brick and mortar side of fitness is paramount. Like, you can add everything on, but you find me someone who would be willing to give up going to their fitness, whether it's a physical therapy facility or it's a gym or a boutique studio, or go back to what COVID was, right? Everybody wanted that. I want to be home. I want to work out at home. I want to be able to have my routine I'm doing at home. But when, your hand is forced, it goes back to the community side of it. So like, you can't find me a Fitbit, you can't find me a Mirror, you can't find me a Peloton bike that after months and months of isolation with just that is going to fill your cup. So I think that, it's great in moderation. It kind of was like birthed out of COVID, but we found it as a good add-on. In our studios, we had a space basically next door to our studio. Think of it as like a glorified walk-in closet that we ended up putting a machine in, and we live streamed the class into that room. Yeah. So that if people weren't comfortable going back into the main studio, we use the technology to bring it over there. Now it's morphed into like moms can bring their babies in, so it is a nice experience. But I think that, again, it's a nice add-on. There's days when I can't get in that I, open my computer and I log into a site and I'm able to do whether it's a Pilates workout or a HIIT workout or something right there. But, I think that the world is, without us having to get more technology and fitness, like, we're not going to be, in 10 years, we're not going to be doing this definitely together. I'm probably a robot that you're talking to, and you're like an AI generated question that's just on a screen to me. So like, it's going there already. Like, if we can maintain like that camaraderie of like walking through a threshold, feeling that nervous energy, because that nervous energy, like, especially if you talk about like HRV levels, that like, yes, your Oura ring things are going to give you those, like that data, but being able to control that, of like that nervous feeling of walking through a door, we should never as humans lose that. Like, that is our body's response to energy, right? To like, oh my gosh, what am I walking into? And like going into a space, whether it's PT, fitness, anything, creating an environment where we're going to be able to better ourselves so that when we walk through that threshold of a different environment, whether it be a burning building or whether it just be like an uncomfortable social event, like those things we're doing in fitness are going to help us be able to make those real life interaction moments like achievable, because we're doing things, not just looking at things.
Yeah, and to your point, Darcy, I think that the community piece is so important. And that's truly what drives happiness,
Yeah.
right? So there's so much happiness research. Like, it's kind of one of my passions is to really research, like, and I guess it's really the human endeavor, right? Like, why are we here? What's what is life all about? What is the higher meaning of being alive, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's two things. It's acts of service and being of service, and it's your social circle. Right. So like interacting with people, and we might both be AI bots in 10 years or whatever, or just like doing it from our homes, and it looks like we're here in person. But I really hope that the personal touch never goes away, because I feel like the community feel really lifts people. It makes me work harder when I work out in groups of people.
Absolutely, I could not agree with you more. It's funny, like John Kelly, from the summertime that we know, we had a conversation one time about like before us, right? Your grandparent, your great grandparents, like they lived on through stories.
Yeah.
So like when our time comes and we pass, right? Like it's a memory, right? But now we're gonna be able to pull up our phones and show this was your great grandfather, right? Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing, right? I don't know. But I think our touch points to people are becoming a lot more jaded now, that I know you before I even walk in this room if I want to, because I've researched every single thing about you.
Yeah.
And I'm not the biggest believer in that's it's kind of like you're judging the book by the cover type deal, right?
Yeah.
So I think that forcing, like you said, like that in person, that getting to know someone really by you guys both using your mouths and literally forming your thoughts on them, I totally agree with you, and that is like fundamental to life, and just the energy. I mean, it's more of a female side of thing, but when I was in college, you live with 15 girls. Like, scientifically, your bodies all morph to the same cycle eventually. Yeah. That's not coincidence. That's like human evolution that happens. So we weren't meant to be in isolation. We were like, people were meant to be together. And so as much as technology is here, it's everywhere, it's advancing our lives, like the social connection has to stay. And that the lines of business that we're in, we promote that, and that has to stay.
Yeah, and it's physiological. I mean, you say, the cycles lining up, like mirror neurons,
Yeah.
right? So that's just as simple as your brain literally has neurons that emulate, when you're connecting with somebody, emulate your body language,
Definitely.
No, I think that's really important. And I think it is amazing. In fitness, it's going to be tough to get, I feel like, results and to continue with motivation if you're not in an in-person setting.
Yeah.
Think about Peloton. I mean, the story of Peloton.
Yeah.
They're kind of on the, really, they've hit a plunge in sales because, and who knows what Peloton would look like if it weren't for COVID, because I feel like everybody wanted an option to be able to work out at home. But that's the perfect, that tells the story right there.
I agree.
People want community.
Mm-hmm.
What does Higher Ground Fitness look like in 5 years?
Yeah, so it's really changed, and my honest answer is like I don't know the ending, and I think my personality, that's okay, right? There'll be more of them, absolutely. I really, really love building. Right now, we're 100% women. I'm proud of that. Not to say I would never hire a male, but I'm really proud of like the women's run business that our team has created. Community, I think that we're never going to be the brand that you see the signage on the door, and you know exactly what it looks like down to the color of everything. Of course, we have our branding colors, but I really like that each of our studios has a little bit of a unique kind of characteristic DNA of it, and each studio has a different feel. And the pulse and the feel of that studio is always going to be driven by the neighborhood we're in. We want to go into a neighborhood well before construction and make sure that we are getting a pulse for that community and building kind of from the outside in. We're in construction, opening 3 more right now. I'd love to, I kind of, while it's an entrepreneurial business, I love like the entrepreneurial side of it, where we get a lot of our internal team that wants to be in fitness, maybe started as an instructor, didn't really know the path, have kind of come on through higher ground, and back to the beginning of this interview, like really built themselves horizontally here. Like some of them have done marketing, some of them have started on the operational side. And I think that 30 years from now, when I look back on my life, like I really hope that the impact I made isn't just on like the fitness side of making people feel better physically, but really on that business side of it, of really helping and nurtured a lot of younger women coming out of college with their career journey, and that higher ground has been a place for them to grow horizontally, so that one day they're running, whether it's their own higher ground or their own business, that they learned a lot of those foundational skills through kind of my experiences and my mistakes along the way.
It's funny. We were just in a podcast, and I talked about it was a PT student, and he asked, what should I look for in my first job? Or we talked about mentorship, and I said, find somebody whom you respect in the community, or a business that somebody who owns it that you want to become, that you respect and you want to emulate, and go work for them and ask them a ton of questions. And yep. I feel like you really embody that person, Darcy.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So now let's talk about personally. Where do you see yourself personally in 5 years?
If I could, say exactly where I'd want to be, I think it would probably be, splitting time between like making snowbirds a younger thing, like moving that to, around our age and having it be okay. I think that on the almost like the other side of, career-wise, what I need to do is like, while maybe younger person starting out needs to figure out who they want their mentor to be, it's also that flip side of like figuring out really who is that person, or who is that team that's really going to help run this business when I'm not there. I think I'm still very, very much in the weeds of it, and find me an entrepreneur, 10 years into their business that isn't still like picking up the phone over a paper cut, But I think that my goal would be to move away from that day-to-day a little bit more, really focus on the personal side of it, and, a lot more of being like, oh, gosh, hold on, I don't want to answer this call. Kids, 1 second and I'll be right back, versus the opposite. Because, the expression that is like, wow, the years go by, the days are long, but the years are short. How much do you already feel that? It was a blink of an eye when it was like Zach and Chase, and you're like just literally sitting there, and they're like telling us to go away now. So that, I heard an expression one time that kind of hit home. It was like, well, 2 things, like you never realize when something is going to be your last, whether it's your last time you're called daddy versus dad, right? But if you really were at the end of your life and you went back and all of a sudden something like your phone rang and all of a sudden it said mom, you pick it up, you'd like crying, like, oh my God, I got to hear my mother's voice again. Or like taking something for granted, like going for a walk on the beach when you sit there and someone asks you and you're like, no, I'll go in like 10 minutes. Those things, like all of those things, I want to be at a place in 8 years where I'm reminding myself to do them and to not find excuses not to.
And it's so tough, like, because you're obviously driven. You're probably, we disc profile everybody here. So are you familiar with the disc?
Yeah, disc assessment. I am like
Yeah.
ID.
Yeah,
there.
so you're an ID. Yeah. So, so I'm a DC.
Okay.
And so it's hard for me to slow down, and I think it's funny, Instagram has some gems. And on one of the gems that I was like last summer that I watched, or maybe the summer before, and it was essentially like, imagine you're 80 years old or 90 years old, and you had the opportunity to live one day again when your kids are little.
Yeah.
It's like the power in that. It's just like, of course I want to build concierge into an empire, as I'm sure you want to build higher ground into an empire as well. But I think slowing down and appreciating, our kids and our station in life, and going to Greece and, spending enjoying the time at the, down the Cape, instead of, trying to push and like worrying about the 3 new clinic, the 3 new clinic. It's going to happen. They're going to open. It's going to be okay. You're going to find people to staff them. It's proven true over the last 8 years, right? Or 7 years. It's going to happen. Everything's going to be okay. I think, to your exact point, like taking time to slow down and just realizing like, you just don't get to breathe. There are lasts. Like to me, and I'll share something with you. Like Noelle, we were down the Cape for April vacation, and so Jolie's in a twin bed now too. So they're both like in their twin beds in the twin room. And I used to like rock Noelle, every time before. She's like 6 years old now, and before she go to sleep, I'd rock her a little bit while Brooke put like a diaper on Jolie. And last week she was like, "Daddy, like I don't need to be rocked anymore. Like we can just do that at home." And I'm like, that was just like a gut punch. You're like, you're still my little baby, and I know someday she'll be like, she'll be an adult, and it's like, well, I don't want to miss. To your exact point, it's just you got to appreciate it.
Yeah. Perfect looks different looking back, and it's so loud. I think like if you literally look back and do an exercise of like, I don't know if you're someone who favorites photos.
Yeah.
But if I were to look back, and I was doing this with the kids the other day, and I looked back at like some videos and pictures from when they were like 2 and 3, and I'm looking at them, and it's definitely the imperfect moments that don't have the little heart, tagged in my favorite section, that I'm like, I should print that photo and hang it off. But in the moment, it's like we're looking through a lens like that is very myopic, like what's the photo I'm going to post, or what's the photo that's perfect that I'm going to show. And we're looking for those moments that are so overly curated. And then if you really take a moment to look back on things, you're like, oh my gosh, I remember that was awesome. But like, you spend so much time getting the perfect picture. You spend so much time on the stuff that doesn't matter. And I know I'll never get there and not, care about all the outside noise, but to just be a little more, present in the stuff that like I know in my heart and my mind matters. But in the moment, like you always think you have more time, and really realizing that like these precious moments.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth, huh?
They matter.
So I should have prepped you on this question. I don't know if I don't think I did.
Throw it at me.
Dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Oh.
You can take a minute to think about that.
Okay.
That's a loaded one.
Any 3 people. Okay. One would be my mom as a little kid, because I know a lot of people probably say their mom, but my mom now is like my mom and my grandmother. They're the version of the mom that I hope someday my kids describe me as, right?
Yeah.
Like she was like that mom, but she always tells me of like this version of her when she was younger, that like she like had some other guy ask her to marry her, that she said yes for a while, and then my dad found out. Like there's all these stories that I'm like, no way, Mom. Like there's this version of her that wanted before she had us, my sister and I, and she is the most giving. Like we go shopping and she doesn't buy anything for her, but she'll get something for the grandkids or for me. But that mom that, if I even look at our chart of like our higher ground people, of that like everybody has a phase of life. Like I want to know my mom at the phase of life at 20, when she was a little maybe more selfish, and like go out with her for a night and just see like, do I see characteristics of me, and is that, am I going to be her when I get older a little bit more? But she's awesome, and I don't know, I'd love to know more about like the young version of her. That's one. Two wouldn't be the real version of her, but Rachel McAdams from The Notebook. I would literally, I want to be in like the Roaring 40s or whatever that movie was. And I want to like be, I think that like I have the poster on the wall in our like movie theater at our house. Like, I love that movie. I love like the risks from that movie of like take it or leave it. I was engaged. Called it all off right before the wedding, actually. And so, you know, watching that movie, I like think that like the version that I'd love to be me in the mirror and be like, oh, that is so me. Like, that's who I would want to be, Rachel McAdams, and I'd want to spend a day with her, that character. And then I think like the end of that book where, you know, she writes and she's, you know, in the final stages of her life and has Alzheimer's. I think that that's incredibly sad and painful, like what she went through. But so much of that character, I don't know, I feel like it resonated with me and I would just love to spend a day with her. And the third one would probably be, this is maybe a little more sad, but I'd want to have lunch with my husband on his last day of life.
Huh. And
literally see if, because you always say looking back, right? And I think Todd, who obviously you know, he's crazy life, crazy business, crazy journey. He's now the president of Reebok, but he started in the mailroom. And his story there, like he was a film major in school. He was supposed to go to California. And then, you know, a family, very, very close family, friend's little brother was killed at a playground. And he kind of had to change some things in life, and he didn't move to California. And he lied on his like typing test, because it was literally like old school typing that he had to do, and he said he could be a personal assistant at Reebok. And he did not get that job, but they said you can work in the mailroom. And so he grinded out, and he is, from an outside looking in, he is one of the, like, people always say, like, I need the playbook on Todd, because his like exterior is a little cold. You're never going to really feel like you get to know him. But then like the few that he does let in, he's like, oh my gosh, he's so warm, right? But there's 20 times during the course of the day that I'm like, get off your phone, come on and do that. And like sometimes he'll be like, I know, I'm sorry. And then other times he'll be like, I got to do this, stop. You know, it's like all of us in life. But I think there is so much of him that he doesn't allow himself to sometimes just like let loose with. And he wants, and he does help a lot of people. And I asked him the question one time, like, what would you want to see yourself as? Like, who would you want to be when, you know, looking back? And he's like, I want to be known as someone who helped as many people as I could. And like his legacy is really important to him. Yet in the moment, I think there's a lot of like decisions that he doesn't do or doesn't make for himself because he doesn't think he should. And I really want to know at the end of his life, like, is he happy with the decisions he made where he's at looking back? Or does he wish he did things different with the kids? I have, you know, stepchildren. There's a lot of complexities, you know, with that. And know so that I could encourage him in the moment now to the things that he really wants, because I don't think he lets himself nor the outside world really know, like he doesn't make enough decisions for himself, I guess is the summary. He does a lot that he thinks he should do. And he doesn't listen to a lot of people. I think I can get in his head sometimes, like I'm that like annoying little bug.
You're also his wife.
And you know, but I would encourage him to do more of that. And I think a lot of people probably need that. So I would want to have lunch with him on his last day.
I love that. I think, I mean, that's chock full of like lots of things to pull out of that. You know, but it really does go right back to that. Hey, you get you get one chance to live. So you're on your deathbed. So he's having lunch with you that day, and he has one chance to relive, you know, July 4th down the Cape.
Yeah. Like,
what does that day look like? You know, and I think like when you visualize it, like there's so much power in that, like visualizing it. And I'm a big believer, and you use the word seasons of life, right? Like every life has its own season and chapter, and I think, you know, it's so tough, and Brooke often says this, and because, you know, she's right here with me all the time. And, I wish she was here during this interview, but it's like, how are you successful as both an entrepreneur or a business owner and as a parent? And the answer is sometimes you're not successful as either, right? Like you are going to drop a ball somewhere, because it's hard to be 100% in on one thing and 100%. It's impossible. You can't be 100% in on two things at once. And I think that when I think about legacy, that's a question that I want to ask you. What is when you're 80 years old and Todd is having lunch with you, what is your answer going to be for what legacy do you want to leave?
I mean, that's a hard one, because I think that I want to get better at just being okay with what I'm not good at. I'm a really bad follow-upper, right? And that's in business for sure, but like business, you can say that's like the word flaws. I feel like when you're asked in like an interview of business, like you kind of have to have your few that you're okay being like, this is a flaw of mine, right? But in the personal side, it's really hard to be honest with what your flaws are. And I have my 5 probably high school girlfriends. I have my college friends, but my high school girlfriends are like, they're my glue. But if I'm really honest, am I great about keeping up with my high school girlfriends? No. And there are a lot of life's moments where I wish I was better. Like, it's not the birthday texts and things like that, but really like being there. And a lot of times, like as we get so busy in life, like we don't even hear about like the big things, like the illnesses, like, God, sometimes like the parents die, like you're not, and the guilt afterwards of like, oh my gosh, I'm not there for that person, right? And so what I want to get better at and what I want to look back on is that the handful, and I'm okay if it's under 10 fingers, right? That those 10 people that I really was there for them. Not that like I did good and I had a great business, but like the people that matter to me, that I hopefully feel like I matter to them, that I don't go dark on, that I don't, that I make sure to spend time with and make sure that they feel like loved. And like Maya Angelou's quote, no one's ever going to remember what you say, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. Like that's the number one thing I always try to like teach my kids. It's like, it's not just don't make fun of somebody, make them feel something, like make them feel good, So I think that I want to look back on my life and have had fun with my kids and have them really look at me and be like, we had fun together. Like, I don't care if they eat 25 Oreos for dinner and throw up and I have to hold their hair while they throw up. Fine. Did we have fun, like splashing milk around? Like, I'm the type of mom that like, I'll put a tarp down and like there's paint everywhere, and then Todd will come home and be like, what is this? And I'm like, I've zero apologies. And like,
yeah, you should see
for that
back,
side of it.
You should see my back deck.
But I think, I don't know, I think motherhood is for sure my number one. Like in family, I think a blended family is really, really challenging. It's complex. Some days I feel like I can see the wart on my nose get bigger of like being a stepmom. And then other days I'm like, I'm a really good stepmom. I could do probably a whole podcast on like stepmom life. But at the end of the day, it's like, for me, it's motherhood. It's motherhood and making sure that like my kids are seeing me as someone that like they're proud to call their mom.
Yeah. Just as you are of your mom.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Thanks so much, Darcy, for joining me today.
Thank you.
And this was awesome.
So great, Sean.
Appreciate your time, and thanks again.